for Joe.
Sorry?
Countdown for Joe.
He's got his thumbs up. That means it's good to go. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the third Data Horror Stories. I'm Sam from Open Data Manchester. I'm really happy to be joined tonight with from Rachel. Rachel, would you like to say hello? Maybe you can see Rachel waving there. Brilliant. So Rachel's from Her+Data Manchester. We're also joined tonight with from Data Manchester. Unfortunately, well, Joe is here from Data Manchester. John unfortunately can't make it tonight, so you're stuck with mine and Rachel's lovely faces. Yes, so but I know many of you here tonight, and if you're watching at home on the YouTube, you've probably come via Data Manchester, so welcome. Hello everyone on YouTube as well. Big thank you to everyone for coming. So yeah, as I say, this is our third Data Horror Stories. The first time we did it was just Open Data Manchester. Last time we did it, it was us and Data Manchester. This time for the third one, it's also Her+Data Manchester. So maybe next year for the fourth one, we'll get a fourth organization involved. I don't know. So yes, so tonight we've got a few speakers lined up, maybe including myself and Rachel if there's a bit of time, but it's also a chance for you guys to share your data horror stories. So yeah, there'll be a bit of time at the end, maybe for you guys to have a couple of minutes. If you want to share your data horror story with us, please let us know in the chat box, and we'll try and give you sort of a 2-minute slot at the end. So please do that. They're always really, really good fun. And if you're watching us on YouTube, I don't know, maybe tweet us, and yeah, don't know. Okay, so just before we go any further, yeah, I'm going to ask the people on Zoom, we'll sort of maybe just stay on mute for the majority of this. I think some of the speakers might invite questions, but I think if you do have questions throughout their talks, pop them in the chat box and we'll try and get to them. So just very, very quickly, how do I make this go? There we go. It's just a code of conduct for tonight. Essentially, you know, we're an inclusive community. Everybody is welcome at these events, and we encourage everyone to share ideas. Just, you know, listen to each other, be nice, but also, you know, if you want to just sit and be quiet and listen in with your camera off, that's totally fine. We want you to feel comfortable. We want you to enjoy yourself. Just a little bit about Open Data Manchester. For those of you who don't know, maybe you've come to us tonight via Data or Her+Data. We're a not-for-profit. We were formed back in 2010 from a diverse group of open data advocates, and we essentially support organizations to release data. We help people and communities to use it, and we work, I guess we work with, it could be public sector, private sector, communities. We work on a variety of projects, but we also do a lot of meetups and events, training, workshops, that kind of thing. In pre-COVID times, we had monthly meetups where we did lots of collaborations and so on. So yeah, just a few events that we've got coming up in the next month. So earlier in COVID, when we first went into lockdown, we did a series of weekly online workshops called Pick and Mix. Rachel here gave a really great one on GitHub, an introduction to GitHub. And John as well from Data did a brilliant one on introduction to data analysis. Well, we're back for a shorter season 2, shorter, but by no means, you know, it's still going to be great. We've got things like tricks and hacks for Google Sheets. We've got text mining in Python, and we've got machine learning fundamentals in R. And these are all totally free. They're all completely open to anyone and everyone. So please do come along. Please do share it. And if you want to catch up on the previous season, there's the Vimeo link there, and we'll share this on Twitter afterwards, so you can catch up on our previous sessions. About a month ago, Open Data Manchester released our Declaration for Responsible and Intelligent Data Practice. It's essentially a co-designed vision of what best data practice, ethical data practice across Greater Manchester should look like. And during November, we're running a series of events, which is essentially going to introduce it, where you can come along, find out what it's about, why we need it, and what the next steps are, and how you can get involved. So the website there, declaration.org.uk, you can find a lot more information on there. And again, we'll tweet details about this. And we have a monthly newsletter, which you can, if you're quick enough, you can grab that QR code or you can go to that bit.ly or go to our website and sign up to our monthly newsletter, which we just let you know about all of these events. And if you have stuff going on that you want us to share, please let us know and we'll happily share it. So, Rachel.
Thanks so much for inviting Her+Data along, Sam. So my name is Rachel Ainsworth. I am one of the organizers for Her+Data Manchester. So we are a women in data meetup group. Although in this new COVID world, we've gone online, so you don't have to be from Manchester to attend anymore. But basically our mission is to bring together women with a connection to data, to provide a safe space where we can all support, celebrate, and inspire each other, share experiences and knowledge, establish meaningful connections, and of course, talk data. So you can find us on Meetup, where you can see all our upcoming events. You can connect with us on Twitter or watch some of our online events that we recorded, which you can find on our YouTube channel. And next slide, please, Sam. Our next event, so we normally meet on the second Thursday of each month, but we are switching it up a bit for the month of November, and we're going to meet on Wednesday, November 11th, online at 6:30 p.m. GMT time, also UTC time. And our next event is actually a goal mapping masterclass. So 2020 probably didn't go according to plan for many people, so we want to kind of help you, make the most of your potential for 2021. So you can find out more information on our Meetup page and sign up there. And thanks very much.
Brilliant, thanks, Rachel. And also tonight, this is a co-event between three organisations. So Data Manchester. So as John's not here, I'm going to speak on behalf, although there's Joe waving. So Data Manchester, it's the Manchester chapter of the international Data community. So anyone who's based in Manchester, you can come along to their events to share, learn new things. It's not just Python focused. They do lots of really cool things like code nights and so on, where you can bring a project and meet like-minded people and get help on your project. I'm assuming, I don't know whether that's online or not at the moment, but I know that they're still running, they have been running online events and meetups. So best thing to do is to go on to their meetup page or their Twitter page. They also have a Slack channel you can join as well. So we're really thankful for PyData tonight for sorting out the YouTube live stream. And yeah, so brilliant. So no, I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to stop sharing. So yes, so tonight we've got three main speakers lined up. We're really pleased to be joined by Sophie Walker, Fiona Pye, and Hannah Guest, and we're going to hear from those guys in that order. So I'm just going to hand straight over to Sophie Walker to share with us tonight the first of our data horror stories. Sophie, over to you.
Thanks very much, Sam. Okay, I have some slides, so I am hopefully sharing them with you. I am Sophie, as Sam said. I am the COO and co-founder of Disposal, and our mission is to empower people to know what happens to their waste and make better decisions around it by bringing transparency and accountability to the waste supply chain. We believe that better data can help to do this, and well, only though really if it's open data and built on open foundations. So the theme tonight is data horror stories, and frankly, waste data is a horror story. But I will try to give you a few specific examples and explain why it matters. And I'm afraid that this slide is my only nod to a horror slide, but anyway. So most people don't think that much about what they put in the bin, and if they are asked, they kind of think that the journey of that waste is something like this. So it gets picked up by a bin truck, it gets taken to a waste site, and then it's either recycled, landfilled, or burned. It's kind of simple. The fact is, it looks more like this. It is a complex web of interwoven waste companies which span the globe, and you're responsible for your waste until it reaches its end destination. But keeping track of that waste and trying to make sure that it doesn't end up in the wrong hands is really complicated. It's very time consuming, and frankly, at the moment, it's virtually impossible with the way things currently are. And then you end up with images like this from around the world, and the stories that we've seen with Blue Planet 2 and various other programs showing, waste just where it shouldn't be. Or truly horrifying headlines like this, which you may have heard about because it did make the national news when waste, including clinical, medical and biological waste, was left stockpiled in unrefrigerated warehouses when the company that had the contract to handle all of NHS Scotland's waste and some of NHS England's waste, they didn't have the sufficient onward routes for that waste that they were collecting. And rather than alert the NHS to this issue and not collect the waste, they continued to collect it and invoice it, even though they weren't able to properly dispose of it. And it resulted in COBRA meetings and all sorts of disgusting things and a lot of money for the cleanup. And I sort of feel like that there's kind of two major things at play here, which is what I'm going to focus on. So one is that people don't know that they have a legal obligation to their waste, a lot of people. And the other is that it is really difficult to carry out those obligations. So we did a piece of research that we called the Tip of the Binberg report. And part of that was a YouGov survey in Greater Manchester, which showed that 49% of adults didn't know that waste removal services needed to be licensed. And then in a study by the Right Waste, Right Place campaign, they found that even kind of SME businesses were unaware of their duty of care, with 48% of them not knowing where their waste goes once it leaves their premises, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier. So, but the thing is that even if you do know you need to check, and even if you know where to go and check, like on the Environment Agency's public registers, it can be a very convoluted and tiresome task. And another part of the research that we did in Greater Manchester was to try to verify the license information on adverts in local papers offering rubbish removal. And of the 34 ads that we found and we looked into, we could only verify 3 from the ads themselves, as in the information that was contained in the ad. And then we rang up the rest, and we were able to verify 1 more. And then a number of them did give us valid license details, and it was only really by researching that we were able to determine that it was highly unlikely that the license number that they'd given us was actually for that person or that operation, either because the details didn't match at all, or because actually in ringing up these kind of 30 odd ads, we found that like in 2 cases there was 5 different organizations or ads that gave us the same 1 number, and clearly that is not right. So part of the issue with this is that the industry is really behind when it comes to tech, and so a lot of it is still just very paper based and very kind of not digital. So I'm going to give you an example now. So we were onboarding a customer to disposal, and one of the waste contractors that they use is called Olico, and on their supplier database they had them down with 2 addresses, one of which was their head office, and then the one of the site that they kind of used was in Bristol. So we used the Environment Agency's public register. We use the API for our directory, but sometimes we can't find the information on disposal because there's location data error. But so I've headed to the EA website to search on there instead. And so I type in Olico to try and find information about them. So that returned me 32 results, and I filtered it for Bristol to try and find the Bristol one, but there's none in Bristol. So I go back to the search all registers function, and I decide I'm going to search by the postcode that I've been given and see if that gives me anything to go on. So I found 58 results, but when I filtered down for Olico, none of them were for Olico. So then if I go back to the information the customer gave us, I see that the kind of the full address that they've given, the first line said Genico. So I think, oh, okay, maybe it's a different name they go by. So I Googled Genico. Cool, they're a food waste company and they have a location with the same postcode. Yes, excellent. But when I go back to check for Genico on the Environment Agency website, the results are 0. Okay. So then I go back to the Genico website, and maybe I think they've put their documents on their website and I can find that information out through there. So great, they've got a resources section, and they have put their licenses and permits on there. So I click to download their permit, and great, they've got one, but this is weird because actually the name of the company operating the site is Wessex Water, which seems strange. So, okay, I'm going to take the permit number now, and I'm going to go back to the Environment Agency and search for that permit number. Uh-oh, why isn't it showing any results? I remember it's sometimes really pernickety, and so I don't think I should put in the EPR/ bit at the start. So I delete that bit out and I put in just the number, and great, I find it, it's a legitimate license, that's brilliant. But I still don't understand why they're providing me a license for a different company. So I went back to the Geneco website to see if I could find any clues, and then I eventually found that in their footer they had a little Wessex Water logo, and then I went to Companies House and I find that Geneco are in fact owned by Wessex Water. I mean, it just should not be that hard to try and figure out if a company is legitimate. And the lack of standardization on permits and licenses is also a problem. So the same company, like here I've got, these are all the same company, but their name is recorded in 4 different ways at least. And that sort of thing happens all the time. And again, trying to find them then in the register is really difficult because it's really specific, or there's no validation on addresses. So you can literally type in pretty much anything. So these 2 examples I found were when I searched for address in the address thing with not known, and you can see there's like 3 examples there where they've literally written not known or known in, and then ones where it just doesn't conform to any kind of normal address kind of format at all. And all of this just makes it more complicated for someone trying to carry out what is their basic legal obligation. And it also offers a huge amount of opportunity for unscrupulous operators. And frankly, I just don't think doing the right thing should be this hard, because it's costing our economy. So this 600 million is kind of what they think it costs the English economy, but they think it's more than $1 billion for the UK economy. And DEFRA have conducted a review into serious and organised crime in the industry, and they found that the lack of digital record keeping made it very easy for criminals to exploit the system. And so we think we should be trying to make it easier for people to do that, and we think that digitalisation helps with that. And luckily, so did DEFRA. Last year, we were one of 5 companies to take part in a 3-month GovTech Catalyst project with DEFRA to research the feasibility of a electronic waste tracking system for the whole of the UK. We learned a lot from that project, and we worked out how we thought we should build that system. And a big part of that was the need for an open data standard for waste. And you'll see that we worked with Open Data Manchester on it. And in the summer, we submitted a bid for phase 2, laying out our vision with all of these wonderful partners. And we were like super excited about how we could make this a reality. And then unfortunately, we weren't successful. And they just didn't seem to get the importance of an open data standard. But the thing is that without one, no new system is going to really work, because they have to integrate with all the other bits of software that are out there, and all of the waste companies that at best use Excel and have their own systems and various different things. So we really think that standards are super important. And so we're continuing to sort of try to build them for the sector in any way that we can. So Your Disposal, which is our social enterprise, recently won some funding from the ODI to develop an open data standard of information around council waste and recycling services, and create a prototype open data set of that information. It's true, lots of that information is online already, but actually council websites can be quite hard to find and quite difficult to navigate. And so this project will make it easier for councils to share that information and for the public to access it as well. So it's been really well received so far. We're excited about having the first iteration out in early next year, and we're exploring ways to link it with other open data sources and platforms like OpenStreetMap. If this is something that you think sounds interesting, please get in touch. And that's it for me. So yeah, thanks very much, and thank you for listening. So let me stop sharing. If anybody's got any questions, I'm really happy to take them and stick them in the chat, and I will let Sam and Rachel tell me how that works.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Sophie. Thanks for that. That was really good. Yeah, giving the Zoom round of applause. Yeah, that fantastic. And yeah, I just such a crazy story, like the just all the different the variations on the names and so on. Like, you know, it's crazy when you think in 20, well, you think it would be crazy in 2020, but some of the stories that have been coming out over the past few months, like Excelgate and everything else, we've kind of purposely decided not to mention that. I know I've just mentioned it. We've sort of purposely decided to steer away from anything to, you know, that's been in the news lately, because it's kind of depressing, right? So but yeah, there we go. So yeah, if there's any questions for Sophie, please do feel free to yeah, pop them in the chat, and we'll either Sophie can answer them or we can answer them in a bit. But I'm gonna go straight on. Let's move on to our next speaker, who is Fiona Pye. Fiona, hello. I'm just going to let you introduce yourself and tell us your data horror story.
So mine is in a very different style. So yeah, I'm Fiona. I'm a data analyst for WSP, which is a civil engineering company. I was originally going to tell a story about mismanaged Excel spreadsheets from a client and destroyed primary keys. So for those of you who don't know, a primary key is like a unique value that makes rows distinct within a database, so you know that that is that record. But last week something happened to me, and I was like, no, this is just so basically we have a database that holds communication records. So whenever a company like wants to contact you, they have to keep all the records about you that they hold, and these have to be accessible to you within, I think, 48 hours, something like this. So we have a big database that's connected to the internet, and people can view all the communication records and documents associated with it. While trying to upload a communication record for about 500 contacts, I accidentally caused the entire database of communications and associated documents to be archived 2 days after we had moved server. So everybody was testing the new server system, and they were like, it doesn't work, the communications have gone. And then I got this email from the head of the development, and he was like, last night there was this this transaction, which is like a process that's been run inside the database, and it, basically what had happened, it was a slightly non-standard version that I was trying to implement, and I didn't really have a proper way of testing it. So what I was doing was I did like a select all, and then was sub-selecting from the select all. So select all picks absolutely all the records, and then I'd written like a sub-select. I realize this is so technical actually. So within this, I picked up everything in the database, and then within this was picking out particular records that I needed. And this works for testing, but when you write update, it overwrites everything within that. And basically I'd left in the test when my colleague, who'd been working too late in the evening, just ran my query without actually testing it properly, and it just wiped the entire thing. It took us an entire day to get the whole thing back online again and put all the testing behind, and I was just like, I can't believe what I've done. Like, I felt guilty for like all week. It was just so embarrassing. But I think the lessons are when you need to test things properly, which is very true. But if your test is slightly different than your final version, you need to make sure that you have updated it so that your final version's ready. And don't work too late and run things when you're not like quite functioning. Because we have a system of quality checks, but it obviously just failed in this situation. But it was ridiculous. Yeah.
Brilliant. Excellent. That is a horror story.
Yeah.
That moment of, oh, expletive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But good lessons, and good lessons for yeah. it just goes to show, like, even the simplest thing.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous. Like afterwards, I knew immediately what we'd done,
Yeah.
but at the time, it just hadn't occurred to us at all.
Brilliant. Love it. Thank you.
Sorry if that was too technical. I kind of didn't realise.
We're at Pi Data, Open Data, Her+Data. I don't think there is such a thing as too technical here. No, fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fiona. That's brilliant. So I'm just having a quick look in the chat. If there's any questions for Fiona, please pop them in the chat. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer. Brilliant. Well, let's move on to our third speaker. I'm going to introduce Hannah Guest. Now, Hannah, would you like to unmute yourself and say hello?
Hi, I'm an auditory researcher at the University of Manchester. And Joe, am I ready to start speaking? Am I all good to go? Okay, grand. So this is a story about why science is broken. And I was going to try and structure it as like one of those kind of 1990s campfire horror stories where you find out right at the end that the murderer has been in the backseat of the car all along. But I couldn't make it work. So spoiler alert, the murderer is me, and the victim is truth, I guess. So I'm not sure how involved all of you are with science, so I will just tell you science is broken. And we know this because scientists will often report some research finding, and then when the work is repeated, suddenly there's nothing there. And this is referred to as the replication crisis or the reproducibility crisis, but that's kind of a misnomer. So really what it is a falseness crisis, because most often the reason why the science doesn't agree is that the positive finding that was claimed in the first place was not real. And the upshot on a macro scale is that many or most scientific findings out there in the research literature are just pure bullshit. And the reasons for this are many and complex, but fundamentally what it comes down to is that scientists are rewarded for getting positive results, which is finding some relationship between things, and penalized for negative results where they fail to find a relationship. And this is true to the point of fairly routinely ending scientific careers. And I am acutely aware of this because my career has been absolutely crammed with negative results. And I've only survived by being crafty and a bit of a suck up. But if you were in my position and a person of dignity, you'd be screwed. So a lot of people say this idea of science being in crisis is overblown because, like, sure, there are these pressures on young scientists to produce positive results, but if they're good, honest people, then that's not going to contaminate their work, right? This is the thinking. They'll simply find and report the truth. So as long as science isn't crammed with sociopaths, supposedly we're okay. And whenever I hear that argument, I kind of shudder because I know it to be true, to be untrue from personal experience. And I have also historically felt kind of uncomfortable explaining how I know it to be true, or to be untrue. And how I know it is that as an undergrad, long before my PhD, I biased my first ever research project and caused a bullshit result. And I wasn't conscious of it at the time. This wasn't some deliberate decision. And there wasn't even that much pressure on me to produce a positive result. I just kind of wanted to be patted on the head and told that I was a clever girl. But what there were a few small flaws and uncertainties in the study. So the blinding wasn't thorough. So what that meant was that even though I wasn't told who got the treatment and who didn't, I could often kind of guess based on little things that they would say to me in passing as they were entering or leaving a session. And also one of the measures that we were using, one of the tests, was supposed to be quite black and white, correct or incorrect. But actually, if the person gave an ambiguous answer, which they often did, then my subjective judgment would come into it, into determining whether they were marked as right or wrong. But I wasn't really clear on either of these issues as the study was happening. So the study finishes and we've got a positive result. And wouldn't you know it, the positive result is on the one test that I talked about where I had the power to slightly influence the results. And at that point, it all starts to crystallize in my mind. So like my bosses are high-fiving and talking about me doing a PhD, and I'm in the corner quietly sweating and trying to figure out, do I stay quiet and keep everyone happy, or do I rock the boat? And it is so tempting to keep quiet because, like, I don't even know for sure that I screwed this up. Like, maybe this result is real. And crucially, I cannot figure this out on my own. So what gets me to the truth is having a friend who's a statistician. So I tell him my suspicions, and he's able to take my data, look at the patterns in the two groups, and figure out, has a crime taken place, or did the victim just die of natural causes? And there it is. There's this like discontinuity in the data, this strange unnatural step. And the position of the step means that it slightly boosts the performance of people who we'd want to do well on the test and slightly hinders the performance of people that we would want to do badly. And so at that point, I know I have created a bullshit research finding. And this finding is already being used by my bosses in presentations and with funders to try and get grant money. And so after I'm done weeping and throwing up, I put this all into a very long email to my bosses, and it's got like graphs showing the statistical evidence of my crime and explanations of why I've done this, and is just generally drama queenish and overly self-important. And yet they are incredibly nice about it. Nice with a light sprinkling of shock and irritation. But ultimately, we just quietly file it away in the misadventures drawer and make some excuses to funders, and we all go on with our lives. And perhaps that was the only thing to do. But lately, I have wondered if that might not be true, especially as I have research students of my own. I have a feeling that perhaps the reason why I've been a fairly decent PhD student and professional researcher is having that painful, unavoidable knowledge of the awful things that I'm capable of with data. And so, as a result, putting in place structures and behaviors that give me the total clarity to avoid repeating my past mistakes. So, I wonder if maybe the way we fix science is by shining a light on this stuff on a micro as well as a macro level. So maybe the only way to be sure of doing good science is to be clear on how incredibly easy it is to do bad science. And I think one part of this is needing to be clear about all the ways to force a positive result in a research project. And there are so many ways to do that. But I think the other part of it is being clear about the psychology and about how incredibly easy it is on a personal level to sleepwalk into bad science, even if you're a person with good intentions. Because I think that has to be what's going on in science worldwide, because large-scale statistical analysis of all the research out there shows that the majority of science have to be producing bullshit results. The numbers tell us this for sure. And if that's not accidental in the way that I've described tonight or something similar, then that means that science is crammed with sociopaths and we are doomed. So I guess my point, if I have a point, is that this is not a story about murder. It's a story about manslaughter, large scale, unwitting, unconscious, institutionalized manslaughter with causes that are both systemic and deeply human. And my guess is that this doesn't just apply to science, but to anywhere that data are gathered and used by human beings who have needs and wants and flaws and biases. So my question to you would be, what can you do, if anything, to ensure that the claims you're making based on data are true? And perhaps more importantly, what can you do to ensure the same for your students and underlings while they're still young and malleable and figuring out what kind of scientist or professional they're going to be? So thank you for listening, everyone, and have a happy Halloween.
Wow, brilliant. Yeah, that's like a mic drop moment there, Hannah. Yeah. No, thank you so much. Yeah, brilliant. Couple of comments. Yeah, Julian says, well said. And Fiona, yeah, you're so right. The positive bias in science is unreal. Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. Well, yeah, thank you, Hannah, for that brilliant. That is a horror story, I suppose. Brilliant. Okay, guys. So let's move on. So we've got three people who have volunteered to share their to take a 2-minute data horror story slot. So I think that we should have. What do you think, Rachel? Should we hand over to them now? Yeah. Yes. Brilliant. Okay, so first up, we've got Angela. Angela, would you like to unmute yourself and
I would. I will share my screen, so don't worry when it's dark, as this is a horror story. Well, I'm trying to I am going to tell
Oh,
you
Sam,
all.
do you have to make her a co-host to share a screen?
Oh,
Or?
yes, Angela, I think I do.
Okay, that had a really good effect planned there. We'll try again.
I've made you co-host now.
Right, so don't worry about the dark screen because this is a horror story. And that's really not working. You still can't see my screen. Okay, I had a really clever effect where there was a dark screen and you saw my face emerge because I'm using the light on my phone. But as that's not working, I'll go straight into the horror story. So I have two basic horror stories, both really quick. As I put in the chat, I'm a member of USPRIG, the secretary, and we do research on spreadsheet risk. And a lot of what we do isn't actually about does a spreadsheet work or not. It's about the quality of the data in the spreadsheet. And one of my absolutely favourite ones, which is from a few years ago, is about MI5. And MI5 accidentally bugged 1,061 lines they shouldn't have done. And the reason they did this is that a spreadsheet formatting error caused them to apply for data on the identity of phone numbers ending 000 rather than the actual last 3 digits. So basically they bugged over 1,000 people that they had absolutely no right to bug. Really little thing, you know, and really scary to know it's happened. And my other horror story is a personal one. I was working as a consultant on 2 projects, Project A, Project B. Someone I was working with on Project B from another firm, I sent them the model and they rang me and said, you've sent me the wrong one. You've sent it for Project A. I'm advising the other side on Project A. Now, I could have been sacked for this. I wasn't. I was really lucky. He was really good. He just deleted the email and never told anyone. But I just think things like this illustrate how easy it is for something really, really simple to go horribly, horribly wrong. That's basically it for my horror stories.
Brilliant. Thank you, Angela. Thank you for sharing. Excellent. And you put a link in the chat, didn't you, to the?
Yeah, I would strongly encourage people to look at that. We try to collect horror stories about spreadsheets, and some of it is, you know, obviously the current. I think someone said Excel gate, but things like, you know, when we sold the wrong number of seats for the Olympics, that was due to someone misusing a spreadsheet. People have committed fraud by hiding rows or columns in a spreadsheet because they think no one will be able to see it. And, you know, one of the rail franchises was misawarded because people didn't understand how inflation worked in a spreadsheet. So I'd encourage people to look at that. We're non-commercial, you know, we are very much about trying to help people get things right.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Angela. It's a strange thing. I mean, I love being able to do these things online and reach so many people, but it is weird because you kind of want the applause after everyone's. We should get like a sound effect for it next time, shouldn't we, that you can play. Okay, brilliant. So next up, we've got Magda. Magda, would you like to unmute yourself and tell us your horror story?
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So one horror story I had. So it's not about spreadsheet, but it's with because I'm working with Transact SQL, and I updated a table on. I was doing it in a larger project. One job is to update a table, and I forgot to put a where clause. So that's very disastrous because then on that table, all the contracts had my name. So that was a bit strange when I was testing, but luckily I was on a test server, so I was able to roll back. So it wasn't on production server. And the lesson for this is very easy to forget something when you run a large procedure in SQL. So always have a backup solution for a database, and always so you'll be able to roll back, and always run first on a test server. So that's about my horror story. I had my personal experience. That's it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you, Magda. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Lots of fantastic. Yeah. Fiona says in the chat, I used the same thing as her almost. Yeah. And, yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Magda, for sharing. So next up, we have Nathan. Nathan, would you like to unmute yourself and tell us your horror story?
Yeah, I kind of was reminded of this just listening to Hannah. And I will keep things pretty vague because I did get in touch with the authors and they were very nice and they did fix things. But essentially what happened was I was looking into a particular field, and there was a paper which was trying to assess how replicable and reproducible the field was. So reproducible means that you can take the code and the data from the article and then you can get the same results. And replicable means you can rerun the experiment and hopefully find the same effect, or at least to rerun the experiment. It may be the other way around. I can never remember which is which. So I was reading this article. It was very good. It was complaining that this field that it was looking at was pretty terrible. It used a bunch of analysis to show this. There was funnel plots. There was a data aggregation. And some of the papers that it was analyzing, I was quite interested in. So I went to the bottom of the article to find the code and the data of the article. See, some of you are seeing where this is going. And it wasn't there. The article itself was neither reproducible or replicable. So I emailed the authors and they sent me the data, and their official explanation was that it was the editors. It was the editors' fault. And 2 weeks later, the data was on the website, but the author sent me an email saying that they'd had quite a fight with the editors. And since then, these editors who've published a large number of journals have added the following disclaimer to every single article on their website, kind of highlighting that they are never to blame in any circumstances. I've just put it in the chat. It says the publisher is not responsible for the content or functionality of any supporting information supplied by the authors. Any queries should be directed to the corresponding author for the article. So basically, the article on reproducibility was not reproducible because of the editors, who then made sure to bulletproof any future articles against any responsibility for the only thing they're supposed to do. And yeah, that's my horror story.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Nathan. Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, excellent. So, brilliant. Well, we've at the moment we've got to the end of our round of speakers. If there is still, I'd say we've still got another 5-10 minutes free if people would like to share another horror and any of their horror stories. Angela's just said, I'm just going to read these out for the sake of people listening on YouTube. Yeah, so Angela says, yeah, worked at a large financial institution. When we were implementing a new system, my account was the test account. Unfortunately, this led to me receiving hundreds of statements by post in a 1-week period. The postman thought I was committing fraud. Brilliant. Excellent. Well, this has been a really, really, really fascinating evening, and I'm just wondering, yeah, if there's any questions or anything like that for our speakers, do feel free to. If anyone else would like a 2-minute slot, you're very, very welcome to. Otherwise, we can kind of draw our data horror stories to a close. I know me and Rachel had stories up our sleeves. How do we feel about sharing? How do you feel about sharing one, Rachel or me, to cap it off?
Mine was a backup, so if you want to end on yours, go for it.
I don't necessarily want to end on mine, but I kind of I kind of feel like now that we've said it, we probably, one of us needs to, don't we? Okay, I'll tell you what, shall I do a quick 5-minute one? This is just something, it's nice and simple. And then, yeah, and for those of you who are on Zoom, what we'll do is we'll sort of tend to finish in about 5-10 minutes. And for those of you who are on Zoom, if you want to stay online for a bit and we can unmute and just hang out and have a chat, you're very, very welcome to. We'll stay online, or I'll stay online and keep the room open for a little bit longer. But otherwise, yeah, let me share my screen and I'll just finish off with this one. So I'm going to share a what can you guys see? What can you guys see?
Like a thing that's
See your slides, you're good.
This is great. So if you know what horror film this screen grab is from, then you don't win anything, but a thumbs up from me, maybe. So I'm just gonna, so part of what I do sometimes is I run workshops, things like data for communities, and they're usually aimed at sort of beginner. It's like a kind of introduction to data and to the data that is about us and about our communities, and it really is aimed at beginner level. So it might be like people who just need an on-ramp, community workers, charities, local councillors, people who want to use data but don't feel confident or comfortable. So we like to take them through just sort of basic things to look out for, what I call a bit of danger data. So a really good way to, we like to illustrate this, and you might be aware of these. These are strange correlations by Tyler Vigen, and they're really, really worth checking out because they're really, really good fun. So if you haven't come across these before, what he likes to do is to just take random things and put them together and just show the correlations. So with this one, I always kind of say, maths doctorates awarded correlates with uranium stored at US nuclear power plants, and there's a correlation there. And at first glance, you can kind of potentially see how those two might correlate. I don't know. I'm not maths doctorates, physics, nuclear power plants. Yeah, maybe there's a causation that kind of makes sense. And then this one, he has a per capita cheese consumption correlates with number of people who died by becoming tangled in their bed sheets. And okay, we're getting a bit tenuous here, but maybe you've got cheese dreams, people eating cheese last thing at night, bad nightmares, getting tangled up, strangled. Oh, yeah, okay, maybe. Number of people who drowned by falling into a swimming pool or a pool, with correlating with films that Nicolas Cage has appeared in. Okay, I mean, some of his films are bad, but they're potentially not that bad. I don't know. So it's quite just a nice little fun way just to sort of show up that unconscious bias, perhaps. But actually, there's a real world example that I kind of wanted to share, and you might be aware of this, I don't know. It's this article that appeared on City Lab a few years ago called The Bleeding of Chicago. And essentially in the mid-90s, Chicago was known as the murder capital of the world, I think they called it. And what this graph shows is that basically there were over 700 people a year being killed by gunshot in Chicago. So the police and the mayor's office introduced lots of quite controversial tactics. So things like racial profiling, hotspotting, stop and searching, kind of quite not particularly nice tactics, but they were able to show over 20 years, that red line is the overall trend, that the number of people being killed by gunshots did go down, right? So they were able to sit there and go, well, we need to keep putting money into this. We need to keep putting money into the police and into those tactics. They're obviously working. But what this graph actually shows is a slightly different story. It's essentially the upward trend is the number of people who are surviving gunshots. So essentially people getting shot remained roughly the same, but what the article explains is how the A&E departments basically got so good at their job, the number of people surviving was increasing. So it's a very real world example of how we can, misinterpret and use data for, whether they've done it on purpose or not, whether they know the data is skewed and they're using it, I don't know. The article's really, really good, really worth checking out. And I didn't want to end on a negative story about gunshots. So I wanted to just quickly share, this is something that Open Data Manchester did last year at Blue Dot Festival. We were invited to Blue Dot Festival. Thank you, Rachel. And we had a tent called on demystifying data, and we made a Lego print of the UK and Ireland, and we asked people to take a Lego brick, and on a scale that corresponded to a scale 0. It was basically how happy were you yesterday on a scale of 0 to 10, and to pick a color brick and put it on the map where they had come from. And we took this from the Office of National Statistics to their their happiness index, and that's one of the questions they ask, which was how happy are you yesterday, and they use it to produce an open data set about happiness in the UK. So we use this to sort of build up a picture of how happy people were at Blue Dot Festival. And what was really fascinating was how quickly people still made these assumptions, and I think one day we had loads of 10s on Edinburgh. So, and Edinburgh and Glasgow. So people who went, oh, look, people are really happy in Scotland, aren't they? People are giving 10. People in Scotland are really happy. And I was like, well, this is a Sunday. The question is, how happy were you yesterday? Yesterday, they weren't in Scotland. They were at a music festival. They're in a field in Macclesfield dancing to Kraftwerk. So actually, what you're looking at here is two completely different data sets. We're looking at one data set, which is where have people come from to this music festival, and a different data set, which is how happy were you yesterday, but just how quickly people make those assumptions. So I wanted to share this with you guys because I think it's another. Oh, and in case you were wondering, what we did at the end of each day was we worked out how happy people were. So you can see, on the first day, most people gave 7 out of 10. On the second day, most people gave 8 out of 10. And on the third day, most people gave 9 out of 10, which I think is inconclusive scientific proof that people got happier as Blue Dot Festival went on. So that's the end of it's not really a horror story. It started off as a horror story, but it has a happy ending. So yes, that's it from me. Brilliant. And so I will just say thank you so much. Firstly, just a huge thank you to our speakers. So we had a brilliant Sophie and Fiona and Hannah, and also our lightning round speakers at the end, Angela, Magda and Nathan. Thank you so much for sharing your horror stories with us today. This is a clap. Let's just imagine it's really, really loud, and we're in person, and it's echoing, and we can all hear that. And this would be the point where we hang around and have a drink together, and maybe go to the pub. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, guys. And if for those of you on Zoom, if you want to stay online for a little bit, I'll stay on and we can have a chat. If this, maybe the speakers can stay around for a bit if you want to. And for those of you who joined us on YouTube, thank you for streaming. And brilliant. And see you next year when we will have the 4th Data Horror Story, and we'll have the 4th meetup joining us for it. I don't know. Brilliant.